Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another edition of the Mill Georgia Spotlight. I'm your host, Jack Ellis. Thank you so much for joining us this week. The sponsors of this program is Caduceus Medicine and J. Franklin Automotives. And let me hasten to add that the views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of Mercer University or WMUB Channel 38, but we appreciate Channel 38 and Mercer University for letting us use their studios here. I ask that you follow us on YouTube. This program you will be on YouTube, so subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on YouTube, watch us on YouTube, share YouTube with your friends around the world. We'd appreciate it very much. In the spotlight this week is Gary Wheat. Gary Wheat is the CEO, president and CEO of Visit Macon, the old, I guess you would call it the Macon-Bibb County Convention and Visitors Bureau for our old heads such as myself, but it is now called Visit Macon. Welcome to our program.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, Visit Macon, that says it all, that your job is to get people to visit Macon.
That is correct, and we chose that title because it's kind of an industry standard now where we want to engage the consumer and evoke a response. So we want to give them a verb of visit Macon and get them on their way down here to see us.
Well, of course, I can think of 1,000 reasons why people should visit Macon, and all of them are good. But someone who's never been to Macon before, and they're sitting watching this on YouTube in Idaho or North Atlanta, and the question would be, and I hope you'll tell them, why should they visit Macon?
Well, how long do we have? It's very exciting. We're blessed with just an abundance of attractions and events and things that want to bring people here. Everything from our music heritage and just the recent reopening of Capricorn Studios, and obviously our legends who have come through here, and Little Richard and Otis Redding, the Allmans, and from music, live music, our food, our beverage, and then of course we can't forget our history, and that starts with the Okmulgee National Historical Park, who just recently was designated as a National Historical Park. So we're very proud of that attraction, and it brings in probably about 200,000 people a year to visit. And then we have wonderful attractions all through our museums, the Tubman Museum, Georgia Sports Hall of Fame, Museum of Arts and Sciences, Hay House. I could continue and continue, but we have an exciting itineraries that we have in our community and our destination, and we invite anyone to come and visit us.
Now, we have a couple of big festivals every year.
Yes, sir.
Cherry Blossom probably is the headliner. Is that aside from the Cherry Blossom, and we'll talk a little bit about this, but they're going to be on next week, next week to explain what's going on this year, so I'm not going to get into the details with the Cherry Blossom Festival. But is that our biggest event that brings more people to this community every year at any single time as Cherry Blossom
Sure.
Festival?
As you said, we have a wonderful assortment of events. We like to brand ourselves the festival capital of Georgia just because we have so many. And obviously that's led by our Cherry Blossom Festival. And year in and year out over the last few decades, it has been our largest event, and it attracts a lot of people. But I also remind people the last 3 years we've had the Christmas Lights Extravaganza downtown, which runs over a month and brings in a lot of people. But as far as a condensed festival, a 10-day festival, Cherry Blossom attracts thousands of people into our community that bring their tourism dollars that benefit our citizens.
Yeah. Now, you've been here roughly 3 years, I understand.
That's correct.
As in this position, not from Macon, but obviously you fell in love with Macon, had to in order to do this job, have to be in love and do this job. What has been the biggest, I wouldn't say, or I'm not going to say disappointments because we want to focus on the positive here, but what was the biggest surprise that you didn't know about Macon that once you were here that said, oh, wow, I didn't know this?
Well, for me, I don't know if it was a surprise per se, but it was just how big a tourism destination it really is. And part of what we do is that education, because the biggest ambassador and the one thing that every visitor will remember when they take a trip is how they interact with the local citizens. And I think for us, it's creating community pride. That's why I wear this pin, our I Am Macon program. We create community ambassadors so that when a visitor does come in, they're greeted and people understand their contribution to our economy. And that's very critical because it saves us tax dollars, it generates tax dollars, and supports 3,800 jobs in our community. So just the not so much a surprise, but one of the things that I wanted to do was educate our local citizens, because so much of what we do is outside of Macon. We take we're storytellers, and so bringing that story here was something that was mission critical for me.
Now, of course, we have an advantage. We're in the center of the state.
That is correct.
So which means that local, statewide conventions, regional conventions, and we have a pretty good convention center here in the scheme of things. It's been upgraded a couple of times.
Sure.
And we finally built a hotel there, and I'm going to take credit for that because I was mayor. That was my idea to build it there, and it took us a long time to build it. So my question is, how much the lack of an additional hotel? We didn't have a convention center hotel, and everybody kept telling us you need one in order to bring more conventions. So now we have it on our property, our being the taxpayers, attached to our building, taxpayers' building. But that's one hotel. How much more could you do in terms of conventions if we had another downtown hotel, per se, or someplace in the proximity of that?
Sure. Well, right now that is kind of a current need for us. That's a missing piece to our convention sales efforts, because convention center is currently Lindquist Hospitality bought the Marriott and are charged with running the convention center, and they're putting some money into renovations as we speak. But to your question, yes, probably our closest what we call overflow hotel. So when the main hotel fills, we need space to put additional delegates that are there for the convention. And right now, our closest ones are anywhere from 3 to 5 miles. So conventioneers, they really want that proximity, and they want to be close to being able to get back and forth to the event. And nowadays, those conventioneers want a walkable environment. They want an easy access. And so that's why it's kind of critical, and we partnered with the Knight Foundation. They funded a study to look at our hotel market. And the study bore out that our downtown core, our urban core, could support another 1,000 rooms in market.
Well, let me tell you how long it took. It took me almost 8 years to get that hotel. But we couldn't do it without a public-private partnership.
Correct.
We put $14.5 million of taxpayers' money in there. So when you say that they bought the hotel, then maybe they bought the management because it sits on our property.
Correct.
It sits on city's property. We have them pay payment in lieu of taxes.
That is correct.
But it was a $38 million deal, and they put the rest. We put $14.5 million and attach it to our. So my point is, going forward, if we're going to build that type of hotel, it's probably going to take a public-private partnership. Have you discussed this with Urban Development Authority?
Sure. Yeah,
we really get moving on this.
We have great relationships, and a lot of the reasons that I commissioned this study was because I was talking to developers, and I was talking to the Urban Development Authority in Newtown and partners like that saw that need as we did, and it takes that, and that's pretty much commonplace in the norm nowadays for our industry. Is anytime something of that structure goes in, it's a public-private interaction, and so that's kind of where we're at right now is trying to identify that project that's going to get out of the ground and get us that overflow.
You know, we all know about the old Hilton, and we were proud of it when it was there. We hear a lot of rumors these days about it's been purchased, it's going to be renovated, it's going to be back on the market, it's going to have first-class hotel rooms. Any truth to that?
Well, right now it's under renovation. The owner of the building has
as a hotel,
as an apartment, as a hotel, as a hotel. We've been monitoring those renovations and in contact with the owner there, and he's invested a lot of his own money into that. And it's one of those situations where I will drive by there, and every now and then you'll see something else has changed. So I do know that they are working on it. So as of today, and in this interview, it is going forward as a hotel and is under construction as a hotel.
Well, that's great. Now, speaking of hotels, all hotels are not created equal. Of course, we're fortunate enough to be on You told me earlier before we got started, you were from Mississippi.
Correct.
Well, I-75 is our Mississippi River. That's what I look at it as. I-75 and I-16 is our Mississippi River. So many cars come by here, so it's a great economic impact. So a lot of people stay here and we get the hotel taxes just because where we are. You don't have to do anything. They get tired, they pull off, and they get it. And so how much of that, I know that we have a lot of hotels congregated at various exits. How much is that a part of the overall mix? Do you get to sell those rooms because you never know because people are moving about?
Sure. Well, we have 5,200 rooms in play right now, or in use that we count on. And as a market, we average a little over 63% across the board, across our city. And we work 24/7, 365, focused on putting people in all our hotels. Because we're happy when our hotels are filled, because that helps our business, that helps our community. So you're perfectly correct that we sit on a major artery, two major arteries, 16 and 75 that flow through middle Georgia here. But nowadays the market is so competitive because the consumer they have so many choices.
They can stop in for
they can stop in Warner
yeah.
Robins. So it's all about telling that story and that message that we have to create. And I was reading in our industry trades this week that a new stat came out that 80% of people plan their trips and plan their stays online. So it's kind of changed the game a little bit for us. The days of trying to attract them off the interstate, now you have to speak to them while they're on the interstate, whether that's billboards. We do a lot of digital billboards now, especially up in McDonough and in Atlanta, downtown Atlanta. Yes, sir. And so we speak that way, and there's a lot of new technology that we take advantage of to be able to get our message in front of people, even while they're driving, even while they're commuting down here, to maybe strike a chord with them, to give them that extra something to do.
Well, we know, as I said earlier, all hotels are not created equal. We've had some bad publicity, especially the extended stay, or what we would call some people used to call, I don't want to refer to them as flop houses and that type of thing, but the hotels that's very cheap, and we've had some crime affiliated with that. What are you doing in conjunction with the sheriff and others to clean up some of that so that people traveling through and want to stay there not subjected to that?
Right. Well, I've had conversations with representatives from the sheriff's office and the sheriff as well previously, just to kind of talk about that, because that's kind of an epidemic across the nation. It really is, because it leads back to housing. For a lot of people, that's a housing option that they have to take advantage of. And for the business owners, it's upholding to them. It's their property, it's their business, and they own a little bit of that in trying to make sure that they run the business in the best way possible and stay within our laws and regulations here in Macon-Bibb. Yeah. So it's one of those things where you have to communicate, and you have to educate, and you had to advocate for not only our citizens and the crime that might happen with that, but also the visitors. We have to protect the visitors that come here. And so we're often in communication with all our hotels.
Because as they say, you only get one time to
That's
make
correct.
a first impression.
That is absolutely correct.
But but you get, even though these hotels is not maybe you were trying to clean up, but we're still getting hotel motel taxes from them.
Well,
they pay hotel motel taxes like every other.
The visitor pays the hotel motel tax, or pays the tax collected by them.
Yeah, and you get a portion.
And then we get a portion of that along with 10 other entities in Macon-Bibb. But one of the stipulations within that is that if somebody stays over 30 or 29 nights without checking out,
they don't pay tax.
They're not required to collect that tax on that room. So sometimes with these facilities or these properties, when they become basically housing.
So what we need to do is do a better job of housing people who are in need of houses. What I'm saying as a community.
Sure, yeah.
And I've spoken to Mike Austin, the executive director, the CEO of the Macon Housing Authority, and they're doing a good job trying to get
excellent job. They're doing an excellent
job. People
out
of facilities like this into permanent housing. But let's talk about the sports market.
Sure.
We lost the basketball tournament, the high school tournament. I understand it's back.
Yep.
How critical is that, sports marketing?
Very critical. And one of the things that I heard that question a lot when I first arrived is, when are you going to bring the basketball tournament back? So one of our first initiatives when I got here is we sat down with our partners at Spectra that run the Coliseum, as well as the city, and then we made the pitch to GHSA to bring basketball back, and they were very receptive to that. But one of the things that we also wanted to do was we were alternating their wrestling tournaments as well. They do 2 wrestling championships, which is teams and then individuals, traditionals. And we wanted to make sure that we had all 3 in Macon every year. And so we pitched that as a long-term 3-year deal with them, with GHSA. And we're happy to say that partnership's wonderful. It has grown tremendously. This past last week, they had their traditional championships wrestling. And for 4 days, from Thursday through Sunday, that arena was packed. That parking lot, you couldn't have shoehorned another bus into that parking lot. So we love that. We love that. And that's to your point, sports marketing and sports sales here and sports tourism in Macon is alive and well, and it's huge for us. It's critical for us.
You know, I had President Underwood on the program because he owns this joint where we were speaking here. But I had him on earlier this year, and he was talking about the importance of Mercer sports and what it
That
means,
is correct.
not only to the community, but to the Mercer community. So I'm sure it means the same. For instance, when Mercer beat Duke, he was telling me how many hits he got at the university's website. So I'm sure Macon's website got, because where's Mercer located?
That's correct.
And
That's
Macon.
correct.
So how important is varsity sports, a place like Mercer University plays?
It's very critical for us, and the fact that, you know, with football and with basketball, and even one of our largest sports tourism generators in Macon is tennis. So not only Macon Tennis Association and the 12 or so tournaments they do a year, which are just huge, we also have Mercer Tennis, and we've sponsored a professional tournament they do here each year. They bring in some of the best players in the world to Macon in the early fall and have a tournament. So it's very critical. Middle Georgia State just put in a state-of-the-art cross-country course, which will also include a cyclocross course, which is rare in Georgia. There aren't many of those in Georgia. So we've been partnering with them to host some tournaments and some events going forward. So we have those relationships that are critical with our varsity sports.
But back to Mercer.
Sure.
Now, they built a couple of nice hotels.
That is correct.
They have spearheaded the Hilton Gardens, and another one I think is a Marriott property. And they have a convention center, basically, with a basketball arena, but they can have different
The
things.
arena, correct.
Do you have access to that if it's not used to do any type of program?
We have definitely partnered with Mercer on that as well, because you know, obviously their varsity sports and then their students are priority there.
Yeah.
But this spring in April coming up, we have the state high school robotics competition.
Will be at Mercer?
It will be at Mercer. And so we've been working with Mercer University on that, and we'll have what I would like to say are some of the smartest kids in the world coming down here to showcase their robotic skills. And that's a huge event for our state.
You mentioned history, and of course we live in a diverse community. We're at the tail end of Black History Month. You mentioned the Tubman. The Tubman is having some very serious challenges in terms of keeping their doors open, and I don't think it's any secret. It shouldn't be a secret because it's a part of this community. How can you, I know you can't make decisions on the spot to give Tubman any money like that, but how important is it to keep a facility like Mercer and all the other museums open and operating, give us that diversity that we need of venues? Sure.
Well, you know, they're cultural cornerstones for our city. And, you know, one of those things where the Music Hall of Fame closed. And I still, that was before my time, but I still hear that.
It was a bad deal. We should have kept that. If
right.
we're going to say that we're the music capital, we should have been able to support it.
Right.
If not,
and you never want to see an attraction close its doors, and especially not on my watch. I don't. It was critical for the Tubman to go on the hotel motel tax this past fall, as well as Museum of Arts and Sciences, and Georgia Sports Hall of Fame has been on it. So that's one of those funding mechanisms that you mentioned. But for us, it's also other ways that we can assist them. It's getting meetings in that space, because it's a very unique meeting space for us. We've taken over film, and we've had film who've rented it out to put extras and makeup and costuming in. So it's serving a variety of roles that we utilize it for. Same with all our museums, but to your point, it's very critical. I'm glad you mentioned Black History Month, because we put together and launched a African American Heritage Tour in Macon, and I'm happy to say we ran 3 tours a week, and they were sold out. We gave them complimentary, so each one was full each time we rolled it out. So it was very exciting to see that program get off the ground and really celebrate the diversity and inclusiveness of Macon.
I'm glad to hear that, because, you know, we live within an hour and a half, as you know, from the largest black middle class outside of Washington, D.C., and maybe Chicago in this country. And they're always looking for something to do on the weekend. And people ask me a lot. I've spent a lot of time in Atlanta. What about this Tubman Museum? What is it about? Is it worth me driving an hour and a half? So if you could partner with them and promote it to that large market, I think we all would benefit.
Sure,
from it.
sure.
So
well, we've served as one of the sponsors of Pan African and All That Jazz, which are 2 of their fundraising events. Yeah. And for those events, we have a digital billboard outside of McDonough there, and we work with our events and promote them that way, as well as in Atlanta. When I got here, we took all our resources, our marketing and advertising resources, and put them into Atlanta. There's 6 million of our closest neighbors up there just wanting to come down and see Macon. So we made a concerted effort to really get into that market and tell our story to the Atlanta citizens.
That's great, because like you said, they're within an hour and a half, 7 million of them sitting up there. And because once they come in, what it means, jobs. I'm looking at your numbers, and of course you said these numbers need updating. Sure. They're in need of updating, but how many jobs, you know, when you say, we're talking about the hospitality, the cooks, the bottle washers, and everything else, the drivers and hotel maids and so forth. How many people are involved in this hospitality industry?
In Macon-Bibb County, we get research results from the State Office of Economic Development, and we have 3,800 jobs that are attributed to tourism and hospitality in Macon-Bibb, in our county. So that's nothing to shake a stick at. That's significant jobs. And one of the things that I want to mention, because you kind of brought it up, but one of the industries that has the fastest rate of promotion is hospitality. You know, you have people that I've met through my travels, and even here, that may have started off, you know, cleaning rooms or serving meals, and now are general managers after 6-7 years, and it's upward mobility. Rapid upward mobility in our community. So that's essential. One of the stats that they included this year was that in 2018, the unemployment rate in Macon-Bibb was 4.5%. Without our tourism jobs, that would have been 10%. So you can really see it is very critical to the economy. And these are people that are paying taxes, buying groceries, you know, contributing. And what those visitors bring in support those jobs, but it also eases a tax burden to the Macon-Bibb citizens, because of the $10 million a year in taxes that these visitors pay, that saves us all about $500 a year in taxes in our communities, and that's huge these days.
We all can understand that.
That is correct. That is correct.
That's for sure. I noticed on your lapel, I am Macon. You have the I'm Macon lapel, which I wish everyone in this town would grasp that message and say I'm Macon, because tourism. I lived on an island called the U.S. Virgin Islands, St. Thomas, St. Croix, for 8 years, and that's all tourism. But what I recall from there is every person, from the taxi driver right on up, was trained to be an ambassador.
That is correct.
In tourism. No matter what your job was, that person that visits that island was your paycheck, whether they indirectly or directly. How much of that do we need to sensitize and train our people here to say that everyone that's visiting our town is important, and we need to not only be in our best behavior, but be an ambassador, if you will?
That is correct, and it's very critical, especially to our industry, but also to our economy, because you never know when the person you run into at a restaurant, or you might be behind that may overhear you talking to your family. They might be there looking to relocate a business, or might be looking to move somewhere and join the workforce. These are hot topic buttons for us these days, and it's very critical. And I would encourage, we put all our partners, we put them through this program, and it's complimentary. So anyone that's watching or viewing that wants to come down and sign up, we run these classes whenever we fill it up. We have 13 spots. It's about an hour of interaction on being an ambassador, some of the hot things to promote about Macon, as well as an hour on our tour bus. We take them around and give them a guided tour so that they can play that out in their minds, so that when they run across a visitor, they go, hey, have you been over to the Hay House? Or, hey, you've got to go see the Tubman. It's one of our jewels. So those are things that are critical for citizens to know, because as I mentioned earlier, the one thing, the single most thing that a visitor will remember is that interaction with the citizens of a community. So we want to invite people back. We want them to come back.
Well, you know, we talked about the amount of jobs that's created, but of course, people spend a lot of money when they're here. And so there's an economic impact
That is
as
correct.
well, in addition to the jobs that people are making and spending their money, but that the visitors are spending. What's the number on that? Do you have a way of calculating that?
Sure, and sometimes it breaks down individually, but in the neighborhood of the average overnight traveler will usually, if they're staying overnight, will spend on average about $120, $130 in their travel party. And for Macon-Bibb, our average travel party size is 3 people. So on average, we have about, and sometimes this is a hard number for people to wrap around, but on average, we have 10,000 people staying in our hotels every night in Macon-Bibb.
Any given night?
Any given night.
The pass-throughs, people who are here on the
That's
conventions,
correct.
the whole
9 yards.
The whole 9 yards.
We did the research on that and had a third party come in and look at that, and that's what they determined. The average stay was 1 night. Average size of the party was 3 people, and that equates, if you run our numbers versus 5,200 rooms and an average of 63% every night, you know, it comes out to about 10,000
Now,
people.
how much money do we give you? What's your, when I say give you, that's coming from all sources, your budget to do what you do?
Sure. Well, we have collections, obviously, of the hotel motel tax, and that passes through our city. There are 11 entities on that. We receive of an 8% tax on each room. We receive about 47% of that to go out each day.
So your budget your yearly budget is what?
About $2 million.
About $2 million
to go and bring that
to do
back.
the promotion.
That's correct.
Staff,
That's correct.
And the whole
all 9 yards, as I said.
Yeah.
And one of the things we wanted to do is we wanted to see what the impact of that was. And so we had Dr. Greg George over at Middle Georgia State did a study on our investment that we make in tourism here. And for every dollar that we spend of that $2 million in our budget, $54 comes back. That's a pretty good turnaround, wouldn't you say?
That is a pretty good turnaround. You know, so many things we could talk about, because I wanted to ask you about, but we all have about a minute left. We lost a softball tournament. Used to be a huge softball tournament. People would call it the Macon Shootout or whatever it was. We lost it to Forsyth or someplace. Any ideas of bringing that back?
You know, that's another one of those things I heard, and we always want to try to bring and invite people back. But what we're also doing, we're not sitting around waiting. We're also working on tournaments just as large that we can bring in. Matter of fact, next week we have a volleyball tournament that's brand new to our community coming in, called Rising Phoenix, going to be over at the Convention Center. So a lot of teams coming in.
A lot of great things are happening, and I can see that we are very fortunate to have you at the helm to lead us and continue to bring people here. We've been speaking with Gary Wheat, who is the President and CEO of Visit Macon, the old Convention and Visitors Bureau. So become a tourist in your hometown. Take that tour, the African American History Tour, whatever tour they have here in Macon, and get to know more about our city, even though you live here, so that you too can be an ambassador and promote tourism in our city. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, my pleasure.
And we thank you all for joining us. Till next week, I'm your host, Jack Ellis. Goodbye.